Thank you. We are thrilled to be here tonight and to have the privilege of introducing the 2015 Citizen Diplomat Award recipients. Now, CIVIC has traditionally recognized its member volunteers, individuals dedicated to introducing international visitors to Iowa's culture and its people. They take time to escort visitors to events like Iowa Hawkeye football games, tours of the Amanas, and even recently, well, not that recently because they went boating on the Coralville Reservoir. Seems like a long time ago now. These member volunteers also donate countless hours to accompanying our visitors to their professional appointments, to meeting with the folks that we are recognizing this evening. Tonight's celebration of Citizen Diplomacy Dinner is to honor an individual, a nonprofit organization, and a member of business or industry, all who are equally critical to CIVIC's efforts to promote international cooperation, foster mutual understanding, and to build global networks across national borders. All of which we hope contributes to advancing a more peaceful and prosperous global community. Each of tonight's recipients have shared their time, knowledge, and expertise by meeting with multiple individuals and delegations to exchange ideas this past year. The work they do helps our visitors develop professionally, but perhaps even more significantly, shapes in positive ways our international visitors' understanding of the United States and of Americans. Their work helps us to share the diversity of American culture, to break down stereotypes, and to strengthen our understanding of one another. Their work is that of a citizen diplomat, and it is work that is as crucial today as it has ever been. Our first award recognizes a business or industry. Tonight we celebrate the citizen diplomacy of the Gazette and KCRG TV9. A free and independent press is a core element of a functioning democracy, and the staff and administration of both the Gazette and KCRG TV9 have welcomed journalists and delegations from Sweden to Palestine this year. They have discussed both theoretical ideas about journalism's role in society and the technical logistics of how they report on and disseminate the news. Together, these organizations have shared their expertise about many news media platforms, from online to print to broadcast. Indeed, the opportunity to sit behind the news anchor desk and with the green screen is often a highlight of our visitors' trip. Finally, when CIVIC is awarded a delegation, we schedule our visitors' programs based on a pre-established set of objectives. And typically, our meetings are arranged several weeks out. Yet oftentimes when delegations arrive in the United States and attend their Washington, D.C. orientations, other priorities or wishes come up. Sometimes we learn about them only after they've already arrived in Eastern Iowa. As a result, the CIVIC staff is occasionally scrambling at the last minute to try and accommodate visitors' priorities. Both the Gazette and KCRG have graciously accommodated these last-minute appeals, and for this, the staff is especially grateful. Tonight, for their citizen diplomacy and generosity, we recognize the Gazette and KCRG TV9.
Accepting the award on behalf of KCRG TV9, our news director, Adam Karras, and news anchor, Bruce Auney. Chuck Peters, president and CEO of the Gazette Company, is accepting for the Gazette. Please join me in welcoming our awardees to the stage.
come on up here. We'll get you this here. Get right there. Thank you. Did you, Adam, were you going to say a few words, or Bruce?
He speaks for a living.
Okay.
I asked Adam today who was speaking, and he said, "You speak for a living," so here I am.
Hold that for you if you like.
Oh, thank you. What's amazing, as you all know today, is that the state of Iowa really exists far beyond our physical borders. We have established so many relationships with peoples in other countries, cultural, economic, educational, and so on. We at TV9 realized this many years ago. I've been there for almost 30 years now, and as a result, we have sent news reporters on assignments in quite a few other countries, Mexico, Honduras, Kuwait, the old Soviet Union, and then Russia, China, Japan, and I've had the privilege of being the news reporter who's been out on many of these assignments. The one thing I've always been fascinated by when I go to these countries is meeting people and finding out how marvelous the reception is that they give us, the interest that they have in us. They answer our questions. They share their traditions and customs with us, and maybe most importantly, they treat us with respect. So as a result, the KCRG and the Gazette as well knew years ago that when people came here, we had to treat them exactly the same. We have welcomed many, many foreign visitors, and especially foreign journalists at KCRG through the years. We find they're very curious. They want to know about our country. Often, it's hard to believe, but some of these people come in and they really don't know much more about the United States than what they have seen on television or in the movies. And so they're very curious about what our country is like, what our jobs are like. So we take time and spend time with them, and we answer their questions, and we treat them with respect. I found that as I've met all of these people through the years, the most amazing thing, we're all alike. We all have the same wants and desires. We all want the best for our families. We all want good jobs. We all want the best educational opportunities for our kids, and so on and so on. Too often it's the governments that seem to get in the way of all of this. But that's why we appreciate being able to share our expertise with so many of these people, and we hope to be able to do that for many, many years to come, thanks to your organization. I don't do that on the air very often. Thank you very much for this award.
Thank you. We really appreciate this recognition, and we appreciate all that you do. When I say appreciate, I deeply mean it. We are one of the few organizations in this region that is totally dependent on the region. Right? Many businesses are here, but their business is elsewhere. They could survive almost anywhere. But we are totally dependent on this region thriving. And of course, we had a real blow to that about 7.5 years ago. And right after that time, we were visited by international development experts from all over the world who said, you know, you really don't understand what a wonderful quality of life you have here, but there is a big task to be done that really no politicians are talking about and no media are talking about, and that is to proactively create dense networks locally that can make new things happen and be connected globally. So when we see your tagline, we say that's exactly the kind of thing we want to be doing, but we also need to be living the brand promise of Iowa's Creative Corridor. You know, there was somebody in the room here, I think Congressman Jim Leach, who when we went to visit after naming ourselves Iowa's Creative Corridor said, you're all corridorians now, right? But when the world, I've heard this all over the world, when the world looks at the United States, they see New York, Chicago, LA. And if they zoom in a little more, they might see Miami, Dallas, Seattle, right, San Francisco. But we are clearly in the Chicago region. In the world's eyes, we are in the Chicago region. But we're kind of the great white space of the Chicago region. So we need to band together, of the 500,000 people in Iowa's Creative Corridor, and not only create those dense networks locally, but do it with a global perspective. And there is an emerging global narrative, which is way longer than we have time for tonight, that we need to plug into. So we are working proactively on developing a perspective hub to try to bring that accessible to us, because I will tell you, at least from my experience, our politicians, our Board of Regents are not operating in any global perspective, let alone the emerging global perspective. So that is real work to be done, and we appreciate your help in doing that work. Thank you.
I did want to let Bruce speak, but I did want to share an anecdote that I think really exemplifies the work that CIVIC does and the importance for our involvement when we are able to host these groups. We had a group of journalists come through on one of the tours from CIVIC, and I believe one of the young men was from Afghanistan. And he was sharing one of my favorite parts when these groups come through is actually sharing insights and answering their questions and getting to ask some of my own as well. But it struck me the importance of this when this young man from Afghanistan, who was a TV host there and hosted a political talk show, asked me, what happens when we get something wrong? And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, if you get something wrong, who holds you responsible? I said, well, the people do, the audience. If we get something wrong and the audience knows it, they're going to hold us accountable and they'll turn the channel and watch somebody else. And he said, well, no, what government agency tells you what you can and cannot report? And it took me a second for that to sink in, that that's a reality in a good portion of the world still, where the government tells journalists what they can and cannot report, and how blessed we are in America and in Iowa to have a free press, and have a press that is able to report the truth about what's happening in Des Moines, in Washington, in Cedar Rapids, in Iowa City, without fear of someone from the government coming down and telling us that we can't do it or putting our families in jail. And I think that's one of the eye-opening things that this journalist from Afghanistan went home and realized is the potential of what should be happening in Afghanistan, and an appreciation for what we have here in America. So I just thought that was something that came to mind here as I was listening to Bruce of the important work that CIVIC does, and the important thing that I think we are able to contribute as part of that work. So again, thank you very much.
They're dancing around the stage. The 2015 Citizen Diplomat Award for a nonprofit organization is awarded to the Islamic Center of Cedar Rapids. The Islamic Center of Cedar Rapids has been a gracious host of civic visitors for many years. Visitors meeting at the center play an important part in helping current and emerging leaders understand the significant role that Muslim Americans have historically played in our community, and the important contribution that the Muslim American community continues to make politically, economically, and culturally to Eastern Iowa. Visitors to the center this last year have come from Southeast Asian nations, the Middle East, and nearly all areas of Europe. At the center, they've discussed strategies about how to build interfaith dialogues, provide faith-based preschool education, and productively engage young people. These visits play a key role in breaking down stereotypes of Americans and of the experience of American Muslims in our community, and at the same time work, we hope, to foster more inclusive communities at home. The majority of delegations who visited the center this past year also had the opportunity to visit the Mother Mosque of America. The Mother Mosque has also, for many years, welcomed civic visitors with open arms and serves as a highlight of visitors' cultural programming. It is with great pleasure that tonight we offer the Islamic Center of Cedar Rapids the 2015 Citizen Diplomat Award, and also express our deep gratitude and appreciation of the Mother Mosque of America.
Receiving the award for the Islamic Center is Imam Hassan Salim. I'm also honored to invite Imam Taha Tawil to be recognized on behalf of our appreciation of the Mother Mosque of America. Please join me in welcoming Imam Salim and Imam Tawil to the stage.
I usually preach on Friday, so I will keep this short and sweet. I just want to, on behalf of the Islamic Center of Cedar Rapids, the congregation and the members there, everyone, to extend our gratitude for CIVICs, for giving us the opportunity to help build relations and bridges within and without, outside of Iowa. So we are very grateful for having had the opportunity to participate in the great efforts that are being done by CIVICs and everyone involved. Thank you very much.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My voice is a little bit tired, but I will say 2 minutes. First of all, the dream of the Mother Mosque was achieved and accomplished. When I was the Imam at the Islamic Center of Cedar Rapids, that I served almost 8 years there, I heard about the Mother Mosque, and it was falling apart. So we bought it back, we started a renovation project, and we started opening it after 1992. And Tom Bridget is our famous man who was always bringing civic people into our midst. We saw people from Russia, Imam from Russia, we saw people from Algeria, we saw people from all over the world. And now the Mother Mosque is serving as a cultural center. Our main object is to build the bridges of communication between the Muslims and the non-Muslims. At the same time, the community of Cedar Rapids was a host for the Arab community. The Christian Arabs came first, and then the Muslim Arabs followed. And they were one family. Together with their own hands, they start making Middle Eastern food and delights, baklava and tabbouleh, and all the goodies of the Middle East, and selling them to the public. That's how St. George Church was built. Next year, they came again and they helped build the Mother Mosque of America. One unity. I wish to see this today. Our politicians divided us. Our politicians kept alienating us from the process. And that's why today we pray for peace and understanding. The message of Islam is a message of peace. It's Abrahamic. We came through the Abrahamic son, Ishmael. Judeo-Christian came from Isaac. The father is one. Yes, there are two mothers, but at least the faith is the same. Therefore, I don't want to go more on that. I want to say that the Mother Mosque is open, and it will be open, inshallah, if God will, for futures to come. And you are all welcome to come, and all welcome to learn about Islam and Muslims and their culture. Thank you, and have a good night.
The final award this evening goes to an individual for their outstanding contributions to citizen diplomacy. This year, we recognize Dr. Nicholas Johnson. Nicholas Johnson is best known as the former FCC commissioner who held presidential appointments during 3 administrations, is the author of How to Talk Back to Your Television Set, was a PBS television host, national lecturer and columnist, and congressional candidate. Locally, he was an active school board member, while also the longest continuously serving visiting professor at the University of Iowa College of Law and co-director of Iowa's Institute for Health, Behavior, and Environmental Policy. The Yale Biographical Dictionary of American Law lists Nick as one of 700, quote, leading figures in the history of American law from the colonial era to the present day. He has also worked for the State Department and others as a media advisor to a number of governments. From this abbreviated version of Nick's biography, you can imagine that he has served as a professional resource for CIVIC in many capacities, including his knowledge of the media, politics, and in his role as a journalist. Nick has met with numerous international visitors, recently with 2 different European Union officials in one-on-one meetings. This year, Nick shared his knowledge of the U.S. political system with young politicians from Europe, and also made an exceptional effort to connect with a German journalist covering U.S. politics, despite many flight delays and rescheduling conflicts. Nick also meets regularly with a delegation as part of a group of political bloggers, modeling civil, yet spirited, discourse regardless of their political leanings. Indeed, visitors often comment on their post-evaluations that they could have talked to Nick all day. I am therefore delighted to recognize Dr. Nicholas Johnson as the 2015 Individual Citizen Diplomat Award recipient. There's stairs over here.
How thoughtful of the elderly.
I'm going to give this to you, and then I can hold it for you while you speak. Isn't that pretty?
Oh, what a wonderful thing. So long as you turn it the right direction. Okay, thank you, Joe, and James for the introduction, and for all you do for all of us here in this room. I should explain that as a former law professor, I'm used to speaking for entire semesters at a time. So you'll be relieved to know that Joe has the hook out and has allotted me but 5 minutes, which I'm going to hold to. So why is CIVIC important to me? Many years ago, in a galaxy far, far away, when my term at the FCC ended, I wanted to revisit the America that lies beyond the Beltway. Ever since a college anthropology course, I've been fascinated and enriched by human diversity. The discovery that, as Ruth Benedict titled her book, that others' different patterns of culture can work as well or better for them as ours does for us. I want to know as much as I can about the full range of human existence. Indeed, among the comments of my critics is that I seem to be more interested in interviewing everyone than merely conversing. So after the FCC, some suggested that what I should do is get a truck and a dog and drive around the United States. And there was a certain appeal to that. But as I thought about it, I realized I would not be meeting anyone but waitresses and truck drivers. So when the Democrats in Iowa's old 3rd District gave me a call and asked if I would please consider running against Congressman H.R. Gross, who was undefeatable, I took a look at that big square of Iowa with its square counties up there on the border with Minnesota. It had union members in the UAW's Local 838 who worked at the world's largest tractor factory, an African-American population in Waterloo, a Hispanic population in Mason City, and the Meskwaki Indians in Tama. one of whom became a real teacher for me. The district has more colleges than most areas its size in America, a range of religious and ethnic affiliations, young professionals, business owners, newspaper editors, and of course, farmers. What an ideal alternative this was. I could experience America without leaving Iowa, just driving around, and with much less expense for gas. Moreover, as a candidate, I had a legitimate excuse for approaching perfect strangers and interviewing them. The only downside was the remote possibility that I might actually be elected, and therefore would have to start commuting from Washington to my rented farmhouse in Kesley. Fortunately, I was able to lose the primary by a full 6-vote margin, which was sufficient, and thereby enable former Iowa legislators Chuck Grassley to begin his 40-year congressional career. So what does this story have to do with CIVIC, I hear you ask? That political campaign, plus world travel before and after my Washington days, is but one illustration of my gradual evolution in self-identification. From an Iowa City boy, to an Iowan, to an American, to a global citizen, and finally to acceptance of my role as but one lowly member of our mammalian species. Today, the airlines have become a dysfunctional way to move human bodies about, and there are fewer folks willing to pay for my tickets. Iowa's 3rd District offered me the opportunity to explore the diversity of America without leaving the state. How fortunate we all are that CIVIC offers us the opportunity to explore the diversity of the world without leaving our city. It is CIVIC that has given me a gift, and now it wants to recognize me for accepting it. What an odd organization.
So please join me in giving one big round of applause to all of our 2015 Citizen Award recipients.